Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive, where we sift through the noise, cut to the chase, and bring you the most compelling nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're diving into a topic that, well, it really challenges our typical understanding of struggle and recovery. We're calling it the unlikely professional. So imagine someone who, from the outside seem to have it all perfectly together. A great career, family, maybe they're respected in the community. But underneath that really polished exterior, they are locked in this relentless secret battle, a battle with a progressive illness, alcoholism. The really powerful insight we're looking at today is that for these folks, rock bottom isn't always that dramatic, visible collapse the world sees. Often it's much more internal, a deep personal implosion. So for the unlikely professional admitting powerlessness, it's not really about their status or what people see. It's more about this courageous, often terrifying journey towards internal honesty. Our sources, particularly these really candid stories in the big book, the main text for Alcoholics Anonymous, they give us this amazing window into these hidden, complex journeys.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here, and honestly often incredibly misunderstood, is just how common this unlikely professional type is. Society, for ages, has clung to this almost movie-like image. Right? The alcoholic has to hit absolute rock bottom, lose the job, the house, the family, before they can even think about getting help or starting recovery.
Right, the dramatic crash.
Exactly. But that traditional story, I mean, it's true for some, of course, but it just dramatically overlooks this huge, often unseen group of people quietly battling addiction. It creates what you could almost call a mass delusion. Because on one hand, society often pushes addictive substances, drink, drink, drink,
Yeah.
at parties and celebrations. And then on the other hand, it acts surprised and often quite judgy when someone actually develops an addiction.
Yeah, that paradox.
It generates this huge internal and external pressure. It makes it incredibly difficult for people who seem successful to admit they have a problem. The fear of stigma, what it might do to their career or social standing, it's immense. So many suffer in total silence, sometimes for decades, just carrying this unbelievable burden alone.
It is natural to assume, isn't it, that someone dealing with a serious alcohol problem would be visibly falling apart. We picture the public meltdowns, the obvious signs of neglect, just a clear downward spiral. But our sources, again and again, they paint this very different picture. And in some ways, it's much more insidious. These are people who, with just enormous effort, manage to keep up successful careers, stable family lives, all while secretly fighting this progressive addiction that's just eating away at them inside. This facade of control. It's like this complex tapestry, woven from denial and just immense internal strain. Think about this story from the big book. A guy working in studio publicity. By 32, he's married, he's a father, seems like his life is totally on track. Yet he remembers that very first taste of alcohol as sheer heaven, describes getting totally smashed at a party. And that one event, that initial rush, it wasn't just a wild night, it was the start of a pattern that would, well, define his drinking. Despite his early success at work and trying so hard to keep up appearances, these relentless, successive Monday morning hangovers, they just became too much. It's so debilitating, so disruptive. They eventually forced him to quit his job. He talks about feeling like a babe in Boozeville at 32, totally out of his depth. And the shame, the humiliation after his first public intoxication. But even that early powerful shame, it wasn't enough to stop the pattern from taking hold and just growing. It just pushed the problem deeper underground.
That's such a crucial point. It perfectly shows how this high-functioning facade is way more than just outward appearance. If we connect this to the bigger psychological picture, alcohol, especially early on, can feel like an ally, almost like a trusted friend.
Right.
It acts like a bridge to emotions. It offers a way to relax, loosen up, or maybe more importantly, to numb really intense, sometimes unbearable feelings. Things like deep sadness or grief, or that constant fear or anxiety. One source even puts it elegantly: repression plus drink, openness.
Wow.
It gives that initial, though obviously temporary, release. It's a desperate coping mechanism for internal discomfort that might otherwise feel completely overwhelming. And for someone who feels this constant pressure to perform, to present this perfect image, this initial solution can feel like a lifesaver. The self-deception and denial involved here are incredibly powerful. The person struggling with addiction will almost always blame outside factors for their unhappiness, anything and everything except the alcohol.
Right. The job's too stressful. My partner doesn't understand me.
Exactly. Liquor isn't the problem. It's seen as this essential ally, a shelter from life's storms. This self-preserving delusion is a core behavior. It's adopted to protect both the drinking and their carefully built position in life. And at its heart, this really points to self-centeredness, which, many in recovery identify as a primary issue in addiction. It's much deeper than just vanity. It's a state where your own feelings, your thoughts, your needs become the absolute ontological center of the world.
Everything revolves around me.
Precisely.
Uh-oh.
Everything is filtered through that lens. And this intense self-focus drives this cluster of self-protective, often secret behaviors: lying, sneaking drinks, a deep resistance to showing any vulnerability. And society, which values control and that polished exterior so highly, it kind of accidentally makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
It attaches huge stigma to admitting an alcohol problem. It fuels that fear of being seen as someone who can't hold their booze or as a social disaster, like that publicity executive felt. This fear can trap people in silent suffering for years, just too terrified of the potential cost to reach out for help.
And what you're saying about that internal experience is so key. Because it's not just about what you do or how you look to others. It's profoundly, devastatingly about what you feel and how you think inside. The internal toll of this hidden fight is just immense and so isolating. We hear accounts of depression settled over me, encasing me in a gray haze, and a constant upset stomach leading to diagnosed intestinal disorders, even though the person rarely drank away from home. Just imagine the sheer effort needed to keep up a professional front while feeling that hidden physical and mental breakdown. You might see this person at work doing their job perfectly, chatting, but you don't see the internal gray haze, the gut-wrenching discomfort, or the deep loneliness they live with every single day. There's this one really poignant quote from someone thinking about quitting. It just perfectly captures the despair. Why waste good booze if you're going to feel just as bad drunk as sober? That's not some casual remark, right? That's the raw, honest, inside voice of someone totally trapped, where the supposed solution, drinking, doesn't even bring temporary relief anymore. In fact, it just makes the misery deeper, intensifies the self-loathing. The core insight here, I think, is that for the unlikely professional, the internal struggle often hits this terrifying depth long before any external signs show up, which makes it incredibly hard for anyone else to really grasp how bad the problem is. This internal battle is the hidden rock bottom.
Which leads us right to a critical question. How does this secret struggle, this internal war, actually evolve over time? Because alcoholism is fundamentally a progressive disease. What might start as seemingly harmless social drinking or maybe just occasional heavy nights, it insidiously ramps up over the years. And what's particularly cruel is that for the alcoholic, times of not drinking, periods of abstinence, far from being a relief, they can quickly become the most miserable of all existences.
Wow.
Yeah, these sober periods are often marked by deep moodiness, intense irritability, a mind that just won't quiet down. The person isn't just sober, they're actively suffering in their sobriety, feeling this acute inability to join in with this fun, which paradoxically makes them feel more lonely than ever before.
That's awful.
It is.
Yeah.
And this progressive nature means someone who might initially look like a partial or potential drunkard, drinking in a relatively normal way. Underneath, they're slowly but surely increasing his dosage, or at the very least, becoming rather uncertain of the outcome of any given alcoholic occasion. The control they thought they had just erodes, drink by drink. And there's a major physiological piece to the progression that makes the internal suffering worse. The body actually starts to adapt and change. It creates a physical dependency. Let's skip the deep dive into mitochondria for now, but think of it like this. The body's whole system, especially how it regulates energy in the nervous system, it gradually rewires itself to need alcohol just to function without extreme agitation.
So withdrawal is physically real, not just mental.
Absolutely. When alcohol is taken away, it creates this immense internal agitation and physical pain, far beyond what a normal drinker would ever feel. These aren't just hangovers. They're a sign of an overactive central nervous system. Often comes with mental confusion, uncontrollable shaking, crushing anxiety, and neurologically, you can actually think of addiction as a kind of learning disorder.
Interesting. How so?
Well, repeated behaviors, especially ones that bring intense pleasure or temporarily relieve pain, they create and strengthen new pathways in the brain, neural pathways. Brain activity shifts away from conscious choice, which is usually governed by the prefrontal cortex, towards more automatic, deeply ingrained habits.
So it becomes less of a choice and more automatic.
Exactly. It's linked to the brain's dopamine systems. You get growth of nerve endings, receptors, making the craving incredibly powerful. Essentially, the brain learns to prioritize the drug, even while the conscious mind is fighting desperately against it. The unlikely professional experiences this biological hijacking just like anyone else, even while they're keeping up that outward composure.
That reframing addiction as a learning disorder that really hits home, especially when we talk about the internal struggle. Because that common story of rock bottom, losing absolutely everything, job, home, family, before finding recovery, it just doesn't fit the experience of the unlikely professional we're talking about. For these people, the real bottom can be much more personal, much more internal, not necessarily that visible external wreckage. Sure, for some, like maybe someone in jail, rock bottom might literally be the concrete floor. But for others, it's the impact of my addictive behaviors on my family and the sense of alienation and shame that grows each time I indulge in a secretive purchasing binge.
That internal consequence.
Yeah, it's this profound internal emotional psychological collapse that stays hidden, often for years. We see this in some really powerful stories from our sources, like the person who, at 70, had this terrifying, crystal clear realization. My God, with my kind of lousy luck, I might not die soon. I could go on living and hurting 10 years longer or more.
Wow, that's chilling.
Isn't it? It's not about hitting some external wall. It's that horrifying dawning awareness of prolonged, inescapable internal suffering and the total inability to stop drinking on their own. This internal recognition, this deep personal reckoning, rather than some immediate visible disaster, that can be the real turning point. It's the moment they truly realize they are utterly powerless over their addiction. And this connects right back to what the Big Book calls they stopped in time. Individuals who, like our unlikely professional, managed to stop drinking before complete external ruin, driven not by public shame or losing everything, but by an inner recognition of their powerlessness and this desperate longing for internal peace.
They're not waiting for the house to burn down.
Exactly. They're stopping because the internal conflict and despair have just become unbearable. The power of this internal rock bottom is it forces a different kind of honesty, one that isn't tied to external judgment.
It's quite profound, isn't it? How the groundwork for this vulnerability to addiction could be laid long, long before the first drink is ever even considered. What's fascinating here is that early adversity can leave this indelible mark on brain development, fundamentally predisposing people to addiction later on.
How does that work?
Well, for example, consistent nurturing parental contact in infancy is absolutely critical for normal brain development, especially for the delicate balance of the brain's neurotransmitter systems. Its absence, even if it's subtle, can make a child more vulnerable to needing drugs later, almost like a way to self-medicate or supplement what their own brain systems might be lacking.
So early environment matters hugely.
Hugely. This isn't just about extreme abuse or neglect either. Even studies on, say, rat pups, deprived of their mother for just an hour a day in their first week. They grew up much more eager to self-administer cocaine. Shows an increased vulnerability later in life. This suggests that painful early experiences actually program both the neurophysiology of addiction and the distressing psychological states that the drug then promises to relieve.
So it's a double whammy, almost.
Kind of. It's not just what happened in the past that creates misery now, but more the way we have allowed past events to define how we see and experience ourselves in the present. Think about a child who experiences abuse and tragically comes to believe they deserved it, or that they're only lovable for their sexuality, or a neglected child who internalizes helplessness as just who they are. These individuals build entire stories and deep implicit beliefs from these unconscious interpretations.
And those beliefs stick.
They really do. And these ill-conditioned implicit beliefs often become self-fulfilling prophecies, actively shaping present experiences based on meanings created way back then. It starkly highlights that the suffering a drug promises to relieve often has roots far deeper than the immediate craving. It taps into these foundational, often hidden wounds. For the unlikely professional, this might mean a lifetime of chasing external validation to cover up deep-seated feelings of inadequacy or unworthiness stemming from those early experiences.
So, okay, given everything we've talked about, the hidden struggle, the internal rock bottom, what does this all really mean for someone who seems to have it all under control? Our unlikely professional. For them, that crucial first step, that first admission, it isn't about confessing to external failures or public disgrace. Instead, it's about bravely confronting these deep, often terrifying internal truths. It's about accepting that we couldn't lick alcohol with our own remaining resources.
That core powerlessness.
Exactly. And that profound realization, often discovered in deep isolation, then opens the door to accepting dependence on a higher power. And it's important to clarify, right? For many in recovery, this higher power isn't necessarily some rigid, traditional religious idea.
Absolutely not. It's often understood as God as we understood him, which for some might simply be the collective strength, the wisdom, the loving support found in the Alcoholics Anonymous group itself.
Finding a power greater than yourself, however you define it.
Precisely.
This admission of powerlessness, it's consistently described as this profound invitation to change. It marks this fundamental shift from being unaware, or maybe willfully ignoring it, to a state of heightened self-awareness. It's complicated, though, because as humans, we're rarely just one thing, right?
Yeah.
Part of us desperately wants to change, to escape the addiction cycle. But another part clings to it for the perceived comfort, maybe, the escape, the familiar routine it offers.
That internal conflict.
Yeah, so recovery becomes this really tough but ultimately liberating journey from that lack of awareness to a deeper, more profound, and totally honest self-awareness. For the unlikely professional, this means realizing that the very self-protective behaviors they use during active drinking, the careful lying, the secret drinking, the intense egocentricity they have to fundamentally change for any real lasting recovery to happen. They essentially have to dismantle the very structure of control they've so carefully built.
That's beautifully put. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the 12 steps offer this remarkably effective, time-tested roadmap for navigating exactly this kind of internal shift. They guide people towards greater honesty, self-discovery, and genuine freedom. For the unlikely professional, these steps are less about external actions and much more about a rigorous internal dig. Let's look at step 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now, this isn't just making a list of bad things you did. It's a profound spiritual exercise aimed at understanding why you behave that way, uncovering the underlying motives, the pattern.
Getting to the root causes.
Exactly. Our sources mention this instructive example, Natalie. Her inventory initially failed because she only focused on her own wrongs, kind of conveniently forgetting or ignoring the wrongs others had done to her. By quickly pushing others' wrongs out of her mind, she accidentally overlooked the crucial fact that her behavior was often at least partly a reaction to her environment and interactions.
The context matters.
Immensely. It underscores that thoroughness and brutal honesty are absolutely key. Writing out detailed questions and answers is often essential for clear thinking and an honest appraisal. It's described as the first tangible evidence of our complete willingness to move forward. The goal is deep, empathetic understanding of oneself, not just a list of mistakes. For the unlikely professional who might have spent a lifetime projecting control and blamelessness, this deep dive into their own motives and flaws. It's an act of extraordinary courage and self-reflection. It directly challenges that carefully constructed identity. Then, following that deep personal exploration, comes step 5. Admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. This is, no question, profoundly difficult, intensely vulnerable. It's specifically designed to deflate the ego.
Sounds tough.
It is. Yet it's also clearly described as necessary to long-time sobriety and peace of mind. Confession is this ancient therapeutic discipline. And without this fearless admission of defects, very few can truly stay sober. The choice of who you tell, the confidant, is absolutely critical. For instance, sharing these intimate details with an ex-husband, probably not the best idea for a recovering woman.
Right, good point.
The huge advantage of doing a 5th step with another recovering person, though, is that their shared experiences can help reveal that we're not unique in our pain or mistakes. It powerfully breaks down that deep sense of isolation and shame that always comes with secret addiction.
Finding common ground.
Exactly. The benefits, though hard-won, are immense. It marks the beginning of true kinship with man and God, a profound loss of that crushing isolation, receiving and giving forgiveness, gaining humility, honesty, and a grounded realism about yourself. It's a radical act of vulnerability that directly counters the unlikely professional's tendency towards self-sufficiency and secrecy. This whole process directly tackles the idea of self-centeredness as the core problem. The Big Book is very clear. Alcoholism isn't just a symptom of other character issues. It's a primary disease that, in turn, creates its own distinct set of symptoms.
Ah, okay. That distinction is important.
Very. That cluster of behavior patterns adopted for self-protection, the habitual lying, the secret drinking, the all-consuming egocentricity, that to hell with the rest of the world attitude, it all stems from this deep-seated self-centeredness. And for real recovery to happen, these self-destructive behaviors absolutely must change. This is the heart of the internal honesty that challenges the very foundation of the unlikely professional's life.
What's really striking, then, from our sources, is that this transformation isn't just some solitary internal journey. Connection with others, especially within the fellowship, is absolutely paramount. The very idea of a higher power in recovery is often radically redefined. It moves way beyond abstract theological concepts. As one person beautifully puts it, God is not an abstract God or a higher-up God that I find alone. To experience God, I have to have other people in my life.
That's powerful.
Isn't it? For them, the higher power is the energy, the spirit working through her relationships with other people. It is not handed down from above. It's essentially the collective spirit of shared humanity and mutual support. This perspective brilliantly reframes the whole idea of power itself. It suggests it really is our power. It's not mine or yours, but ours. It's only power because it's shared. This collective power, often described as being in our midst, calling us into being who we are at our best, powerfully underscores the therapeutic strength of AA. The shared honesty of mutual vulnerability, openly acknowledged, creates this profound sense of identification among members. It offers a healing response to that initial invitation to change.
It's a potent antidote to the isolation of secret addiction.
Exactly. It's precisely why new people feel drawn to meetings. They see others laughing and relaxing and having a good time and suddenly realize, hey, these people have something I want. This deep, authentic connection is absolutely vital, especially for the unlikely professional who might have kept up such an impenetrable facade of individual capability and self-sufficiency for so long.
The fellowship offers a place where that mask can finally come off.
And it's also stressed that AA is fundamentally a spiritual, not a religious program. It allows individuals to define God as they understand him, including the group itself. That really helps overcome resistance from those wary of traditional religion.
That inclusivity is crucial for reaching people who might otherwise feel alienated. Absolutely. Indeed. And this transformation, it's far from a one-time thing, a single achievement. It's a continuous, dynamic, lifelong process of growth. The 12 steps aren't just a checklist you tick off and forget. They're living principles to be practiced daily, continually. For the unlikely professional, this means weaving these principles into the very fabric of their successful life, transforming its meaning from the inside out. Moving outwards from that deep personal reflection, we get to steps 8 and 9, which focus on making amends. Step 8 asks us to made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all.
Okay, so listing the harms done.
Yes, and crucially, becoming willing. This is a big shift in focus, moving from ourselves, which was central to Step 4's inventory, towards others. It's about taking profound responsibility for every wrong committed or omitted, not from a place of paralyzing shame, but out of a deep commitment to personal growth and, importantly, to the peace of mind of those we've affected.
And then Step 9 is acting on that list.
Exactly. Step 9 calls for direct amends to such people, wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. This needs meticulous care, careful timing, real courage, and significant prudence. The goal isn't for the person making amends to feel or look good or just ease their own guilt.
It's about the other person.
It's about providing restitution and acknowledgement where it's appropriate. It means understanding that some amends might need to be partial, others put off indefinitely, and some might never involve direct contact if it would cause more harm. This whole process is about clearing the wreckage of the past, acknowledging that the people we hurt most are often the ones who love us most, and moving towards real reconciliation, not just for our own peace, but more importantly for theirs. For the unlikely professional, this is an exercise in deep humility, taking responsibility for actions they might have previously rationalized or hidden away. Next up is Step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out.
Prayer and meditation.
Yes, presented as the main, most effective ways to achieve this improved conscious contact. For many in recovery, this daily practice helps stop them from becoming easily distracted and lose sight of priorities, especially in our constantly demanding world. Just like the body suffers without food and water, the mind and emotions suffer without consistent spiritual practice.
Makes sense.
This daily discipline is about tuning into a higher purpose and guidance, rather than being constantly driven by ego, external pressures, or that relentless chase for worldly success. It's about finding an inner compass. And finally, we reach Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. The joy of living is the theme of this step, and action is the absolute key word.
Spiritual awakening. What does that mean here?
It isn't necessarily a single dramatic lightning bolt moment. It's described more as a new state of consciousness and being, received like a free gift through diligently practicing the earlier steps. This profound internal shift naturally leads to a desire to carry the message to others still suffering. It fosters this deep understanding that sobriety can't be kept unless it is given away.
Paying it forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the step also extends to practicing these principles in all our affairs. That means applying them consistently in every single part of life, at home, with money, at work, in all personal interactions. The ultimate goal, then, is spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection.
Ah, that's a key phrase.
It really is. This crucial distinction recognizes that while alcoholics are profoundly changed by this program, it by no means makes us perfectly attuned human beings.
Whoa.
There's always more to learn, more room to grow, to evolve. And acknowledging this inherent imperfection is a fundamental part of the humility gained along the way. It's about the striving, not reaching some impossible ideal.
So, as the unlikely professional embarks on this profound, ongoing journey of recovery, what does success genuinely look like now? The perspective shifts dramatically, often in ways they could never have predicted. Initially, the spectacle of years of waste and maybe accumulated debts, that can understandably cause panic. How can I possibly rebuild my finances or security?
Sure, that fear is real.
But the program teaches that financial importance just isn't the main goal anymore, not the driving force. Instead, money is seen through this radically different lens, as a trust for the best use to which it could be put. It's no longer just a symbol of prestige or power or self-worth. Our sources even suggest the temptation of riches can sometimes be even more dangerous than the pains of poverty. That's profound reevaluation of values.
It really is.
The focus of life also fundamentally shifts to living one day at a time. This means consciously letting go of worries and regrets about the past and anxieties about the distant future. It lets all your energy and attention focus purely on the present moment.
Being here now.
Exactly. If tomorrow comes, it'll just be today. So the effort is always firmly planted right here, right now. This present moment awareness is absolute crucial for keeping both sobriety and serenity. And self-care, which might have been totally ignored during active addiction, becomes paramount. This involves really listening to your body, your soul, your higher power, paying attention to basic needs. Hunger, anger, loneliness, tiredness, often remembered by the acronym HALT.
HALT, yeah. Hunger, anger, loneliness, tiredness. Basic but vital.
Addressing these basic needs forms the foundation of serenity. This transformed view on challenges and life itself is captured beautifully by the quote, "I have never in my life envied a human being who led an easy life. I have envied a great many people who led difficult lives and led them well."
That says a lot.
It reflects a profound shift in what truly constitutes a successful, meaningful, and deeply authentic life, far beyond just the external markers.
And this collective healing, this journey of individual transformation, it has these powerful ripple effects that go way beyond just the individual. They enrich the very fabric of the fellowship itself, and you could argue society too. Take anonymity, for instance. It was initially born out of very real early fears. The first groups were basically secret societies because of the pervasive public distrust and contempt for ex-drinkers back then.
Hard to imagine now, but yeah.
But it evolved into this profound spiritual foundation. It serves as a constant reminder for members to place principles before personalities, to uphold the program's integrity above individual ego. And critically, especially for our topic today, it allowed business or professional folk, our unlikely professionals, to join without that paralyzing fear of public backlash.
So it created a safe space.
Absolutely crucial. This anonymity was vital in AA's early growth, and it still is. It protects the very people who couldn't risk their careers, their reputations, their family's stability by being publicly identified as having an alcohol problem. It created a necessary safe haven for them. AA is more than just principles on paper. It's fundamentally a society of recovered alcoholics in action. And action truly is the magic word when it comes to carrying the message. This communal support, this shared vulnerability is vital because, as one of the co-founders profoundly noted, our group strength seems to stem from our individual and ever-potential weakness.
Strength and shared weakness.
Exactly. It is precisely in this shared vulnerability, this mutual acknowledgement of human frailty, and the unwavering support found within the fellowship that true, lasting strength is forged. This strength allows people not only to stay sober, but also to grow spiritually, contribute meaningfully to the world around them, and find that profound sense of belonging that the isolated, unlikely professional often desperately craved in secret.
So we've seen today how rock bottom isn't always that visible external crash it's often made out to be. For the unlikely professional, it's frequently this courageous journey towards internal honesty. where admitting powerlessness is about facing deeply held truths, not about public failure. We've explored the hidden nature of their struggle, the insidious progressive nature of the illness, and how a highly personal internal rock bottom can be the real catalyst for profound change. And we've looked at the transformative power of the 12 steps and the supportive anonymous community they find, offering a path to spiritual awakening, a new way of living focused on progress, not some impossible perfection.
Yeah, and this whole deep dive, it raises a really crucial question, I think, for all of us. Regardless of our own personal struggles or the external successes we might achieve, consider this. In a world that so often measures worth and strength by outward appearance, by impressive achievements, by this unwavering facade of control and self-sufficiency, how do you truly define strength? Is it in meticulously keeping up that perfect, unblemished image? Or is it found in the profound courage to acknowledge vulnerability, to admit powerlessness where it exists, and to bravely seek authentic connection and truth, both within yourself and with others?
We truly hope this deep dive has given you a richer, more nuanced, and maybe more empathetic understanding of addiction and recovery, especially for those who might be silently battling behind that veneer of success. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We encourage you to reflect on your own definitions of strength and how you approach those deeply personal internal challenges. Until next time, stay curious.